In this video, I'm going to be comparing the Maze Runner movies to the Hostel movies because in part one of this series, I compared Maze Runner to G.I. Joe, Maze Runner 1. I compared Hostel to Jingle. What I'm talking about here is the movie Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger, as well as the sequel Jingle All the Way 2, which is really a sequel in name only. Hostel beat Jingles. Now I'm going to compare these two franchises. When you look at high score for each of them, none of these six movies have that good of reviews. I mean, only two out of the three Maze Runner and three Hostel films are even fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. The original Maze Runner film is fresh, but only barely, 66%. Hostel Part 3 is fresh, but only barely, with a 67%, so by only 1%, Hostel gets the point. And then when you look at lowest score, well, out of these six movies, only two of them are fresh, four of them are rotten. When it comes to Maze Runner, the third film in the trilogy, Death Cure, only has a 43%. Hostel Part 2 only has a 44%, which again means by literally only 1%, Hostel gets the point. Then when you look at average score with Maze Runner, it's an average of 52. With Hostel, it's an average of 56. Then we look at gap between lowest and highest score. In the case of Maze Runner, gap of 23. When it comes to Hostel, gap of 23. So we actually have a tie here, but Hostel won the first three rounds, so it's going to win no matter what. Now, when it comes to my personal opinion, I've watched the three Maze Runner films, and I think that they're overall perfectly fine, entertaining enough, enjoyable enough. It's not like I had a bad time while I was watching them, but are they some of the best films based off a YA book? No, I don't think they're some of the best. I think that there's definitely problems here. There's things I enjoy about these films. I mean, you're seeing these teenagers trying to survive the maze is enjoyable. I think it's interesting learning about these zombies, the way that the sequels flesh out the world. I think there's definitely good world building in there, but at the same time, when you look at Maze Runner Death Cure, I think the big thing holding it back is just the writing, where you have bad guys are incompetent. Our good guys are able to just stand out in the open, fire at enemies, take out the enemies, and not get shot themselves. Characters make some pretty stupid decisions. I don't think Thomas is really that interesting of a main character. While I appreciate that the first two movies, especially, are more simple and straightforward, where they get, especially in the second film, we get right to the point. There's no wasting time at all. Overall, I just don't think the Maze Runner films are really all that interesting. They come off as fairly generic. Now, when it comes to Hostel, at this point, I certainly have watched more horror films than I have before. That is definitely true. I've actually watched just a few of the Friday the 13th movies, but watching those ones has made me go, well, I don't like horror films that are about teenagers going off to a creepy, isolated location and misbehaving. That's the thing a lot of Friday the 13th tends to be about. Teenagers go off to Camp Crystal Lake in order to drink or do drugs or smoke or have sex, and that doesn't interest me. It makes the movies come off as cynical and mean spirited. It makes me not like the characters very much at all. So when they die, I'm like, well, okay, I mean, I don't really care. I wasn't very invested in these characters, and I don't really feel much sympathy for them because you guys chose to go off to this camp. You chose to misbehave. So, well, obviously, I don't condone murder. It doesn't change the fact that because of what we see from these teenagers, I don't really feel that bad for them when they die. And so, Hostel is one of these horror films that is a series of horror films that doesn't really interest me as much because of what they are about. These are definitely more extreme films that are inherently more niche. They're not going to be for everybody. They're not even going to be for all horror fans or people who more casually enjoy horror. I'm definitely someone who more casually enjoys horror. I mean, I've seen Alien and Aliens multiple times. I've watched the original Psycho multiple times, but there's quite a good amount of horror films that I've only seen once. And I saw them for the first time not too long ago. So there's other people who are way more into horror than I am who will just watch every one of these films, every single slasher, no matter what, just because, boy, I like these movies, so I'm going to watch every one of them no matter what. That's not me at all. So, in this case, as much as I think Maze Runner films are not some of the best YA films, I'm going to have to choose them because inherently it's a genre that I just like more than Hostel. So, I have to choose Maze Runner here. That'll be it for this one.